This podcast contains political commentary and personal opinions of the host and guests. The discussions are intended to encourage open dialogue and critical thinking. Listeners are encouraged to engage respectfully even when opinions differ. Welcome back to Friday 50-50. That was really funny. Grayson was waiting to press the iPad button and I was waiting for him to press the button. Neither of us were doing anything, but it was worth watching him stretch out. So you and I were chatting, Danielle, a couple of days ago, and we're like, shall we do a Friday 50-50 this Saturday? Because, I've been all over the shop about it. And I thought, I reckon I'll probably have one or two things to say. And actually there's tons I could talk about. So we'll see where it takes us.
Strap in. Here we go.
Strap in. Not strap on. And we're off to our elegant start.
Oh, dear. Can't take us anywhere.
No, you have to take us twice, second time to apologise. Have you heard that one before?
I haven't.
It's one of my faves. Yeah, it's really good. I heard on the way here that following the atrocities in Israel where people were killed and kidnapped from that music festival, because so many people are on MDMA, they're having a lot less PTSD.
Oh.
Because they're in an altered state when it all happened, the way it hit their brain and the way that trauma hit them, quite statistically significant result.
Far out.
So what have we learnt? MDMA at all times. We've taken some before this episode. No, we haven't, because it's illegal, Danielle, and that's why I said no when you tried to get me to have some. Yeah, isn't that interesting though, right?
Fascinating.
Because, of course, in this whole world...
Like you wouldn't wish that on anyone, but,
no.
The fact that that's happened and
at
they've
least
been
they
able
were a
to
little protected.
Have that statistical information is really useful for all the studies they're doing on that sort of thing now.
And, of course, they are. Like in Australia, I thought it was all just illegal and not being inquired into at all. And I saw an interview a while ago with that funny lady who interviews everyone and is also on Fisk. That lady.
Yeah. I love her.
Oh, yeah. She was talking to someone and they were saying there's $1.5 million in Australia going into research of psychedelics for medicinal use.
Yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't what I intended on talking about today, but that's not new. So one of my friends has been pretty committed to the use of psychedelics and has had wonderful breakthroughs from it.
Yes.
And I've been pretty committed to mindfulness, not taking psychedelics, and I've had some wonderful breakthroughs from it. Sam Harris would say that if you've got this is my opinion, if you've got a logical, analytical, grounded, sane kind of mind, psychedelics can help you into a space where your logical mind won't otherwise let you go. When you're a bit doolally like me, you don't need so much help and they could be a little bit too helpful. Let's say, not that I have experienced anything like this, of course, but let's say if I had, my instinct is they might have been a bit too much at times, right?
Interesting.
Yeah, but these guys at this concert gave them a protection that I'm grateful for amongst the atrocity.
Yeah, wow.
So that is actually a good segue because, of course, we're not going to talk about politics exactly, but we are living in a very particular time in the world based on US politics and our head honch over there. And I haven't known what to do about it apart from feel worried. But I don't know if I've shared it here, but I've certainly shared it and I'll tell you about it, what I've shared this week. I feel intuitively that one of the only things we can do, those of us with no power, is to be as loving as possible. Yeah. So not accept bad behaviour. And Andy and I were discussing a couple of nights ago, I reckon if Trump was leading Australia, there would be a lot more activity than there has seemed to be in America. What I mean by that is if we were watching some of the actions he were taking that was risking our democracy, I would be involved, right? And I'm not a particular activist.
Yeah.
But I would be involved, right? Because it's too worrying.
Yeah.
But The other thing that I've noticed, and of course we don't have to talk about all that too much because everyone knows all about it. They either know all about it and are educating themselves, know all about it and becoming terribly tribal, or know all about it and avoiding it like the plague because we have a level of distance where one can rationalise going and looking at trees and trying to pretend he and the whole system that's happening doesn't exist. But one of the things I've noticed, particularly on what you call left-wing comedy or left-wing politics out of America, is, of course, they see themselves as the goodies, and those of us that are sort of anti-Trump would see ourselves as the goodies. But you can't be the goodies and be massively abusive to the other side.
Yeah.
So I had a brush with fame this week.
Did you?
As I like to do.
Oh, please share.
One day, Stephen Fry at the airport. Next day, conversation online. And what happened was, you will have heard me talk about the wonderful, very well-known Steve Biddulph, who wrote Raising Boys, and then he wrote the book I've been reading, Wild Creature Mind.
Yep.
So he posted about the Zelensky and Trump meeting. Oh, our guest Tanya Hallett posted about on LinkedIn and got like 4,500 reactions or something. Yeah. And it was such a wonderful post and allowed really people to think about not the politics of it, but the humanity of it, right? Yeah. So wonderful. She does great work. Yeah. I contacted her and talked to her about it. Anyway, he shared about Zelensky and Trump, and in his post he was very upset for obvious reasons. He also referred to the setup of it or the bullying, but he name-called in it. He name-called Trump, he name-called Vance, and I was a bit disappointed because of this thing we're talking about where I think if we want to, like my friend commented, Michelle Obama says, when they go low, we go high, right? Whereas a lot of people are going low, even great people. Yeah. So he makes this comment and I comment to him on it. I think there's a lot in what you shared to ponder. Thanks, Steve Biddulph, in brackets, who I admire and have followed your decade of farewell writings with great joy. Yeah. Close brackets. He writes on Facebook, he calls it a decade of farewell. It is exquisite, human, comforting, highly recommend. Steve Biddulph, A Decade of Farewell. And then I go on to say, one thing I would say to anyone reading this is that hatred from us, in brackets, who we believe are the goodies, didits, in this story, brings us somewhat down to the level of the baddies, in didits. You acknowledged that you had done this in the picture, thank you, because you put words in a picture. But I think there's a way to hold firm in our belief about unacceptable behaviours without joining the baddies in name-calling / judgment. My instinct is that this is a very important part of this story. Resistance to abhorrent behaviour, yes. Stooping to the same ugly tribalism, no. Love heart. Then I get a response from the Steve himself. Honestly, brush with frame. And I love him, so that was really great. And his response was great. Tamara Callaghan, thank you, Tamara. He probably thought he was writing Tamara Callaghan. Thank you, Tamara. Can't blame him. We know the spelling. The bullying, he wrote, the bullying of an honest and brave man was so appalling. I was pretty angry and distressed and motivated to hit back. My meditation teacher is teaching me to attend to my own distress so it doesn't warp what I do. And as you say, join the ugliness with more ugliness. I wrote back, Steve Biddulph, you are just the best. Thank you for the difference you make. Love heart. Yeah. My friend, when I posted on Facebook, commented something like, the difference, actually I'll see if I can find her actual comment. She wrote it beautifully because I shared that on Facebook, my Facebook, because I was so excited. She commented, what just came up in the volume, that's gold, right? I'll share it in a minute. It's where they have this lady who's been out on a girls' day, but they pretend she's been at kindy. Right, yes. And the lady who's at the pub is like, the husband comes to pick her up and she goes, now she's had a good day. There was a nap on the bar. I might play it in a sec. Hold on. So my friend Narelle wrote, hi Narelle. She wrote, when communication just works, it really can be that simple when accountability, understanding and empathy are shown. So here's an I communication, right? So I'll read it again. Yeah. When communication just works, it really can be that simple when accountability, understanding and empathy are shown. Let's go back to that meme. Sorry, Grayson, this might not be your ideal. We can cut it out if it's terrible. Now, how do I do it? Oh, I turned it down. All right.
Her friends laughing with her same old stories.
Oh, yeah, sure she did.
Now, she did take a nap on the bar today.
I emailed about no day naps.
Yeah, I am aware, but we couldn't really do much after she polished off the second bottle of rosé.
Okay.
She did have a few tears, a lot of I love yous to her mates.
Oh, yeah, she does that.
She did eat, which was great.
Oh, that's good.
She did have 3 cheese boards, though,
Right.
on her own.
Okay.
So they went hard quite early and they were mixing a lot of different drinks. So I just keep an eye on that tonight.
Yeah, I'll put a bucket next to the bed. Thank you. Your bag?
Oh, it's out on the lawn.
Okay. And shoes?
Oh, don't know. Leah's shoes? Can anybody find Leah's shoes? I just want to take a look at the tailbone. She did do a pretty aggressive slut dropper. She was on the table.
Were you twerking? Should we go home?
No.
What if we get a souvlaki with chippies on the way home?
And then she says, yes, I'll go. Isn't that gold?
She had a great
Sorry, Grace, and I know that's
So
terrible.
funny.
Oh, God, it's still playing. I'm so sorry that you're going to have to edit. Or just punish me by not editing and make us look unprofessional.
Emailed about no day naps.
Yeah, I am.
Make it stop.
So
That's hilarious.
Oh, his name's Max Price.
Yeah.
On
Comedian or just
I don't know,
producer?
actually. I don't know
love
anything
clever
about
content
him.
like that. I really, that's the only thing
Says
that,
follow for relatable original comedy content.
Yeah.
He's a comedian, and that particular one, Max Price on Facebook, if you want to actually watch it and not listen to my version of it, really, really funny. Really, really funny.
it's the only thing I like social media for is the fact that people can bring clever content like that out.
Yeah, clever and beautiful, right? My algorithm now on Facebook is so beautiful that I'm not really, what do you call it, a victim of the brutality.
Yes,
Because it's interior decorating, poem, meme about loving oneself. It's
Yeah.
just this gorgeous feed. And
Yeah.
I have a group on Facebook, which I won't share, a private group, but I just share funny things, loving things. My friends and rallies and everyone who's on there do the same. And it's just gorgeous. It really lifts us up. They call it pebbling. When you share memes and happy things, pebbling.
Yeah.
I just want to share this other version I shared on LinkedIn.
Yes.
I wrote, in this fraught international climate, I'm noticing a lot of people who consider themselves on the quote-unquote good side of politics or climate change or life, in brackets, name-calling and belittling those that they consider the bad side. Whilst there are behaviours being displayed on that, in quotes, side, that I agree are frightening or dark, in brackets, or abhorrent really, what I don't see is how stooping to the same tribalism will help anyone or anything. Not sure if this quote is really from Martin Luther King Jr., but I love it anyway and I hope it helps somehow. And the quote is, darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. So we deal with difficult clients sometimes, right? And I was talking to Andy about Trump and his psychology and his psychological disorders, which are largely talked about. And I'm so curious what would happen with him. I don't think he would be accessible. So when people have got a particular level of psychological disorder, they're not really accessible. So they can't help but play that out. And he's shown over and over that he's compelled to play out this thing he's doing. But I wonder what would be possible if someone approached him without judgment, with love, and I mean, as I say, it's crazy. I don't think he'd be accessible.
He'd
But
be like,
I know. I like the fantasy of it. The idea of if you said to him, "Hey, how are you?" I don't think there could possibly be access under the noise he makes for himself or anyone else. I was watching a news anchor on Stephen Colbert, Jake Tapper, very well known guy on CNN out of America. And he was saying, and I liked it because he wasn't speaking about him hatefully, but he was saying, he really believes this stuff he's saying. And a lot of the stuff he said it. He said he was going to do it, and I think people ignored that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I didn't want to talk about politics, but I did want to talk about this idea of coming from love, and when one feels the other, how does one not stoop to that same level? Because I just see too much of that. And it might sound strict, but if you're going to abuse the people you think are wrong, for me, you're not much better than them.
Yeah.
I don't think you can have yourself as high and mighty as you calling someone a loser, dickhead, whatever, knob, whatever the names get called for Trump or JD Vance or whoever.
Yeah.
you know, they terrify me, of course, but
Yeah.
I don't think you don't get to be name calling and superior. You can have one or the other.
Yeah. I'm struggling with it a lot. I had a recent experience with a person that I have to be careful, like respect,
Yes.
and had known for a long time, but I hadn't seen them for a while. And I remember thinking just the other day, because, you know, all the International Women's Day stuff's coming
Yeah.
up, and I'm like, do we really need to do lunches and that now? Like,
Yeah.
we're kind of like, we got this shit sorted now. Like,
Yeah.
you know, do we need to do all this stuff?
Yeah.
And then I had this conversation with this man who, and it really threw me because they were quoting all of this stuff about women like history had been rewritten. And I was flabbergasted. And I was thinking, wow, you've gone into that vortex of misinformation. And he was sprouting all this stuff to me. And it really took me aback. He's in his early 40s. And I thought, he's very wealthy, well-educated, runs businesses, has always run his own business and stuff.
Yes.
And we had this very confronting conversation. Well, it was for me because I don't like, but I did speak up and say, "Oh, I don't think that's right." That's certainly,
that
as a
was
woman, have coming through life in the last whatever. That hasn't been my experience of the corporate world.
Yeah.
And it was like, women don't want CEO positions, and it was like a conversation like that.
Oh,
And
wow.
my jaw just dropped,
Yeah.
and I was like, "What planet are you on?"
Yeah,
Like,
a different one.
a different one.
Yeah, it could even be a flat one.
So then I came back and reflecting on it, thinking, well, we can't really stop international. Like, we just have to keep going with all this stuff. It's International
know.
Women's Day and things like that, because clearly the messages got through to some areas, but there's new messages coming through other outlets
That'd be
that are
right.
now rewriting we've worked hard to create this narrative of fact, and now
Yes.
there's new narratives coming in, like
Yes.
the whole women don't want to be CEOs thing.
Yeah.
I just didn't even know what to say
I know.
to that.
I know.
Because
Well, that's where
that's the struggle that we've been through.
Yeah, I know.
This whole like,
That's the hardest thing I find where I was sharing, it may have even been sharing with Kath on our last interview, you know, when someone has made something their ideology, you can't argue with facts because it's a faith-based thing that they've done, right? Yeah. So when, say, for instance, many of his supporters will ignore all of Trump's transgressions because they want to believe in him, he's a godlike creature to them, so you can't challenge the facts, or in his case, lack of facts. The ones I find the hardest are things that trigger me personally. So if there's something I really believe in, or I think someone making a decision is going to hurt people very, very hard, I find them the hardest ones. The only thing I've been able to do in my small circle is stay quiet and not talk about that topic because I don't know anything else to do. COVID taught me quite a lot. I was pretty vocal during COVID because you know, I'm very scientifically based, right? Yeah. And I know, you know, had this background in pharmaceuticals, and what I didn't realise was I had an understanding of clinical studies that, of course, most people just wouldn't have. No, so I was making really insulting comments about, geez, even bright people are having conspiracy theories, and of course realised, oh, hang on, not everyone knows how to read a clinical paper, and there's so much misinformation and so much information under the guise of factual information. No wonder it's so tricky. Yeah. Anyway, so I had this experience of really, really good people, some of the best people I know, being, in my opinion, extremely confused and potentially causing harm to others. So really tricky. Yeah. And then in recent times, I'll give you a simple example on Perth Hills Chat Forum, which I always say is one of the most vicious, even though they talk about one another, they're wonderful. Actually, say one wrong word on that Facebook page and you are literally almost actually dead, unless you're a dog. I always say they're very, very beautiful with animals, not so much with one another. But anyway, there was a discussion about whether this or that was COVID, and someone commented to someone else who had commented, said, "You haven't become one of the lizard people, have you?" And I was like, oh, I think I'm the lizard person in this story. And I was so hurt. Like, that's the word I would describe is when people are being tribal or hateful, I don't think they realise that Peter Crone fellow I talked about, I've
Yes,
mentioned here,
yes,
you know, people make being right their self-esteem.
Yeah.
And I think that drive to be right is so strong that people will be so hateful. And that's when I thought about it. How did I actually feel when I read that and what the lady had said? I felt really hurt, really offended. But actually, more than anything, I felt really hurt that another human being could label me, well, what's a lizard person? But, you know, I get there's a whole world out there around this subject. But this whole division thing, we know that it's been used in America to feed the outcomes the political players want, including those from America, Russia and everywhere else. But we're so prone to it as our, you know, like we've talked about, I was talking about with Kath, our monkey selves, that you've really got to watch out for it in yourself, I find. And the reason I mentioned COVID is Andy really helped me because he was like, you know, I don't like tribalism. I don't like black and white thinking. Everything is nuanced. There is nothing good to come of tribalism. And I actually thanked him a couple of days ago because I was like, basically without COVID and having a couple of friends pull me up for being really judgmental and him saying tribalism isn't cool, that's helped me get to, of course, I'm still at a level tribal, but I'm trying to rise above my faction.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
But super tricky. Like when you're talking to that fellow or when I'm called a lizard person, really hard not to want to defend or argue or call back or get into a scrap or think they're a piece of shit.
The way that I handled it was just to express my personal experience. I thought I don't have a counter for all these random facts that are being thrown at me about how many women start companies versus men.
Yeah.
I just don't hold that knowledge in my head because why would you?
That's right.
But I thought all I can do is talk from my heart about what my experience has been and how you know, being a woman in corporate space and all the glass ceilings that have had to be broken by people before me so that I could even be where I am and continue to be broken. And just sort of relay my personal experience. And he did listen to me, to his credit. He did listen. And he did thank me for speaking up, which was good. So maybe there's hope. I don't know.
Well, I certainly have had with certain people, if I challenge it, they will.
I just wasn't expecting it in this day and age. I really wasn't. And I think that's what's bothering me now is the permeation.
Yeah.
I hadn't realised that this undercurrent is slowly seeping out and permeating and the misinformation is just becoming the fact.
I know.
And it really bothered me a lot because I just felt, and I think particularly with International Women's Day coming up and me feeling a couple of months ago, maybe I don't need to do that this year because, you know, we've gone past this now that forever, like the vigilance needs to stay because of this sort of permeation of these views, and I don't know what to make. I'm still processing it. I
know. I think there's drivers underneath. This is my theory anyway. It's only my theory.
Sorry, I didn't mean to take you off track for your
It's not off track. It's not off track. It's not off track at all.
It's been bothering me.
Yeah, because it's the literal thing we're talking about. And I always think, what's the underlying driver? So I think this is my own theory. I think what happens is people say what's correct or incorrect to talk about in public. Some people agree with those new views, others don't. They then, this is my theory as to why we have this undercurrent, right? One is just propaganda and clever, what do they call them? Players, knowing how to manipulate people. So in the case of Trump or Putin or all of that, that's just a clever manipulative psychology at the greatest level of politics, right? But then if we look at what happens in a society, I think, say President Obama gets in, right, and we go, oh, my God, that's fantastic. The USA isn't racist anymore. But a big chunk of people would have hated that he was the president. Then we say, okay, you're not allowed to say anything racist in public. You're not allowed to say anything sexist. People follow that rule but don't believe it, don't agree with it, and it's sort of like a terrible analogy. It's kind of like when Andy had his surface melanoma and they said a malignant one could be hiding underneath. Thank you, Jesus, it wasn't. But for me, the top level is, we're not racist, sexist, anything else. Underneath, there's a malignancy where people actually don't agree with that. They're not allowed to say it in a normal conversation. Therefore, they form groups, they create conspiracies. My theory about conspiracy theory is that the people I know that are the biggest conspiracy theorists have the least actual power in their own life. So they don't have a life that works largely, they don't have relationships that work, they don't have control. And it's one area where they can feel superior. That woman that said to me, or not to me, but it certainly felt
group,
like it was to me, lizard people, you can hear as she says it, she's powerful, she's clever, she's superior. And then, of course, back in the day when I was raving on about all the studies and all the rest, part of it, of course, was value-based, but I also felt clever, superior, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
I think these, I think the combination of manipulative players who just know how to use and manipulate people, plus people actually secretly still believing women are inferior or colour makes a difference. Or I think we end up with all of this BS where, because it's no good now, you can't have a real conversation about anything in polite society. Therefore, we end up with factions and ugliness and tribal. We end up with the no vote in Australia, right?
Oh, yeah, fuck, I still haven't got over that.
Well,
I did my postal vote. Not postal vote, my early vote, because I didn't want to go today because we were recording. And there was one of the candidates there, I won't name the party, that I had got complete misinformation from in my letterbox, and they were trying to talk to me on the way, and I thought, I can't even, like, look you in the eye because I will punch you in the face.
Yeah.
Because I have not got over that, and I will, like,
it's like
do not get me started.
It's like when I went to one of the conferences. No, it's perfect.
I got so upset about it.
Yeah, no, because you're actually feeling and thinking about the impact on people as a loving person.
Yeah. And I think that's the basis for me, like how I make sense of it. The people who are like, in order for me to win, someone else has to lose, like is that camp of accepting the misinformation because it makes them win and other people lose.
Yes.
And then in the other camp, I like to think of myself as the abundant camp, is where I can have more, other people can have more.
Yes.
Is that all ships rise in a rising tide, whatever that saying is?
Yes, good
But,
saying.
like, there's the abundance, like, in order for me to win, other people win too. And then there's the other of, in order for me to win, someone else has to lose.
That, I believe, was, if we look at, anyone reads Steve Biddulph's original post about Zelensky and Trump, he was talking about this transactional nature of winning and losing. Someone has to lose for us to win. When you talked about that politician and spreading misinformation, so Welcome to Country was an example that came up that sort of says what I'm speaking to here. So I was at a conference. One of the fellows at it was invited to do Welcome for Country, local Noongar elder and leader, and he stood up and he said, this is the first time I've done a Welcome to Country since the no vote, because he didn't say this, but basically what I got was, you know, why am I doing Welcome to Country? It's bullshit. Yeah. And he commented on, if you're going to do Welcome to Country, don't have it be a tick box BS thing. If I go to the football and they have the welcome, I will hear people mutter around me. Now, this is what doesn't work, in my opinion. God, we end up so much more political than I thought we would today. But it could be useful, right? So this is my opinion what happened. We were doing a cath last week and I made the comment, people come from overseas and are much more helpful in our society than Australians because they don't have the old cynicism, right? So, and this is the example I'm talking about in regards to just telling the truth rather than bullshitting, right? Yeah. So if we were going to have a real conversation without BS about Aboriginal Australia, Indigenous Australia, there would be lots of things that would be talked about that are now considered politically incorrect to talk about. There is a whole, we were ignorant as children of our generation about the beauty and history of these people.
Yes.
Perfect storm. We knew nothing. We're totally ignorant. We grew up in a massively racist, racist, name-calling, anti-Aboriginal society. Then we start to look at what the truth of that is. I watched First Nation on SBS, started to really start to understand this problem and go, oh, my God, I couldn't have known less. I had a particular experience as a child growing up that coloured what I knew. I then had very important friendships which coloured things more positively. But as we sit here today, because we're, in quotes, not allowed to talk about the parts of the culture that don't work for whatever reason, and we know there's very good reasons. But if you're not allowed to mention it and people aren't allowed to express their fear or disappointment or whatever else, and the other side isn't allowed to express their part, I think this is where this undercurrent comes from. It's like, no, don't say anything. But if people are still feeling that way, how does that get you to resolution? It's like if you and I were upset with one another,
Yeah, that's interesting.
like say you'd forgotten to buy me my kombucha 4 weeks in a row.
Which I did.
Just had to be said publicly, then I can get over it. Andy and I were in Dome yesterday and I said, he said, "Have you got that out of your system now?" Because I was shitty about something. And I looked at him like that, I'm like squinting my eyes, gave him a really dirty look. And I go, okay, now I've got it out. But the reason I mention that is it's a silly example.
Yeah.
But
It needs to be.
we have to be able to talk about something. If you and I were actually upset with one another, how do we talk? If Andy and I are upset with one another, and it has to include what hasn't worked about what the other person has done, because then right or wrong, it gets talked about. And then, of course, when you look at the, what's it, incels, involuntary celibates, that group of men, they're like it sounds, like no one wants to have sex with them, and they've formed this big group.
Oh, really?
You've got your wild conspiracy theorists, you've got everyone is trying to grasp some feeling of power, belonging, superiority, aren't they?
Yeah.
And they're trying to get it however they can. And then like we've talked about here before, when you try and live in a nuanced way, you feel stupid and humiliated all the time. And as human beings, it's not a comfortable feeling. And I don't think the majority of people can deal with that feeling. I don't think they can deal with the fact they're good and an asshole, clever and stupid, immature and mature, spoilt and generous. Like, you know, it's very
50-50.
It's 50-50.
50-50.
It's 50-50, man. And it's very, very hard. And so
Yeah. That's interesting. Picking up on what you said, like, because I've been thinking for a while about the truth telling. You know, that a lot of the elders talk about, you know, that's what needs to happen next. We need to have the truth telling thing. And I'm thinking, from what you've just said, maybe we need truth telling on the other side too. Like, there's truths on both sides that need to be aired.
the difficulty is when you're the majority, the powerful majority, what I have heard, and I have had one really serious repercussion for myself in talking about this previously. When you're the majority, the powerful majority, the experience that you've had is not considered valid, which I both understand and think feeds into the problem.
Yeah, okay.
So I really get if you're the privileged majority that haven't had a worry in your life around that kind of thing, I get why if you're in the minority, you'd be like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
But
you know, 50-something% of the country voted the other way. What the fuck are
Why?
they thinking?
Why?
Like, what is
right?
their truth? Like, why? It's clearly confused.
Yeah,
Sorry,
because
for those
they're
people
either
who think differently.
ignorant or had a bad experience. It's one
Yeah.
of those two, right?
Yeah.
Or they fell for
It was just
propaganda
such a
from. There was a lot
harmless
of propaganda
thing.
in the no side.
Yeah.
So if they didn't really research themselves, they could have got confused what it actually meant.
Yeah.
Because everyone wants to keep control, right? And wants to.
And you can't let other people win and
No.
lose that back to that winning and losing.
And that's
thing.
right. I mean, I lost a friendship
Like, what
with.
have they got to win?
I mean, what do you do with this stuff when people have got this such strict opinion? They'll literally die on that hill. Like my old friendship that I don't have anymore because the friend was, when we were talking about changing the date of Australia Day, because it seems logical to me, like if that day upsets people, it doesn't have to be that day. It's not even a good day to represent who we are as a country. For me, it's a really easy solve. But politicians, I don't think, will do it because they don't want to upset the people that don't want it. But I had this conversation and this particular friend was like, fuck them. And I was like, what are you talking about? And then she just said all these terrible things. And I said, I can't believe how hateful you're being. And we've never friends since. Because I was like, I can't, there's not enough in our friendship other than that to make me be okay with the things you said. But I'm just the one that said we need to talk about everything. I think the thing is, it's not talking in a hateful, global, incorrect way. It's talking about our misunderstandings, our difficulties, our reluctances, And then, of course, like we've said, I think with bringing in social media, lack of human connection for a lot of people, and a lot of very clever, manipulative people, everyone's just getting played, right? And what happens?
Algorithms.
Yeah,
The algorithms are
the
killing
algorithms,
us.
right? And then if you think of the conspiracy theorists, they think you and I are getting played.
Yeah.
We think they're getting played. Everyone thinks everyone's getting played.
Yeah.
But then if I think of people, if I ran into them on the street, not on social media, wonderful people.
Yeah.
Really, like many of the people would be very loving, caring, just hold really opposing beliefs.
Yeah.
And really be able to rationalise those as strongly as I can rationalise mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fuck me. I don't even know. I don't even know how much of this we'll be able to share. I mean, it's one of those times where it's like, we don't have too many listeners,
Can
do
you ever
we?
imagine? Like, I, in my whole life, have never imagined not being friends with someone because of a political thing. Not ever.
No.
Not ever in my life. I've had political disagreements with people
I know.
before in my history of being alive.
I know.
But never have I been so, if they think this, then I won't be friends with them anymore.
Yeah.
And as a person, I am disturbed by that level of commitment on my part to participate in it.
I think that the difference is in the past you would have been disagreeing in an Australian context or even in a global one, where the difference is you're now disagreeing on a moral ground, not a political
it's
viewpoint
like
ground.
The same rules don't apply.
They don't.
Yeah.
I don't think they do
Yeah.
because the behaviours and the danger of those behaviours and the changing political landscape and what we consider basic human rights is being messed with.
Yeah.
So therefore, when someone is pro that behaviour, so I basically try and have, even for Trump himself, I try and have as much compassion as possible and go with what I'm always saying, which is if I'd had his life, I would be him.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. And he must be a powerful creator. Like, you know, I come from the natural
Extraordinary
success stuff, which is you focus creates your reality. And his
Extraordinary.
fucking focus must be pretty fucking good because he's fucking got where he
Incredible.
wanted to be.
Incredible.
So, you know, I've got to respect that.
Well, he said, I saw him say many, many years ago before any of this, he said, it's not about your talents, it's about your marketing skills. And, of course, he's had many unsuccessful businesses, but in this particular case, with this particular market available, really primed to get hold of, this American market, marketing genius. Yeah. You can't take that away from him.
You really can't.
No. And he's modelled it on other players that have done that previously. Yeah. But yeah, okay, let's come back to how this started. So the tribalism element, the trying to be loving when we feel like we're in the right, the lack of name calling. Why am I talking about it all? Because I feel like that me, you, anyone who's willing to listen and think about it for themselves, I think it will help if we don't just continue down the road of hatred and division.
Yes.
And try and soften all the time, try and understand people are doing their best, even if their worst behaviours. I don't mean, like I said on my LinkedIn post, I don't mean accept the behaviours. If Trump was our Prime Minister, and like Andy said to me, we're very much helped by our system here, that he wouldn't be our President, he'd be our Prime Minister. And he said, I don't mean in terms of monarchy versus republic, I mean in terms of the way our system works. Yeah. Now I got distracted by that. What was I talking about? How having compassion for him, not his behaviour. I mean, it's no joke at the moment in the world, is it? You might remember I always talk here about open ground. I went with the retreat on open ground and I was speaking to my love Betty, my friend Betty, and she said that Tim Goddard is willing to come on the podcast.
Oh, great.
Yeah, awesome. Really exciting. Yes. I'm very, as you know, I greatly admire Tim, and I said to Betty, I said, maybe we'll talk about how to manage the world as it is at the moment.
Yeah.
I was doing a masterclass with her. I do once a month at Open Grounds running. Wonderful for those of us that are experienced in mindfulness. And she made a couple of comments on it. One I've talked about here before, where she said the more you learn, the more humiliated you get, which I laugh because I just am so often humiliated. It's so uncomfortable. And the other thing she talked about, and this one I found so hard, she said, when you accept that you don't have the control in the thing. Oh, and when she said it, because I realised I was pretending I had some sort of control over the world or Trump or climate change, I was holding on like somehow I could turn myself into this godlike being. And then she goes, you know, it's useful to go, there's nothing I can do about this.
Yeah.
I don't think I've totally got over it yet. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think I've totally integrated that truth.
Yeah. The natural success sort of angle was no matter what's going on out there, the only job that I'll say I have is to be my true authentic self in the world.
Yes.
That is my job, and everything else is, you know,
Okay.
got nothing to do with me.
Okay.
But that is my job.
And
And if
the-
I'm doing that job
Yes.
well,
Yes.
then the ripples that I send out into the world is enough.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, I can understand that.
I'm hanging on to that one.
Well, you have to. You have to.
You've
It
gotta hang
doesn't,
on to
doesn't sound
something.
bad to me. It doesn't sound like a bad plan. My auntie sent in an email the
I
other
guess
day.
in a way you could think of it as head in the sand, but I am still being proactive, but I'm being proactive the only way I can be, which is to be myself in the world.
Yeah, I don't think
My
it's head in the
best self.
sand because it's like, you know, the famous circles of control and concern and influence, right? Concern, I'm worried about it but can't do anything about it. Influence, I can do something about it. And I suppose putting the posts I did online, having this conversation with you today, going, okay, what can I influence? Maybe if someone hasn't thought about this and they happen to hear this, or someone hears it and tells a friend, perhaps someone will learn, like I did during COVID, being right versus being happy is not the way to world peace.
Yeah.
Right? It's the
Yeah.
fundamental basis of every war, every religious war, every land war is I'm right, you're wrong, I'm better, you're nothing. And so that was, you know, like I said, it was part of what I wanted to say, but the whole political conversation we had, I wasn't really planning on saying. No, you don't need to be sorry. I started it and then you just joined in with
I just
useful
went, "Woo."
information. Well, it is topical, right?
is, yeah.
It is topical. And when you were talking about the, you know, natural success, doing what feels authentic to you and joyful to you, you know, as you know, when I shared coming back from the retreat and understanding where my worth came from and have continued to get freedom around that, and then I started to look at this like, left and right side of the brain.
Yes.
So fantastically interesting. So I was up on site doing my discern work with one of our big clients that we've done for years, and I had these several days where I just sort of was getting one revelation after another. Yeah, it was really fun. It was not right now because I'm actually premenstrual, but back then I was pretty good and sane, and I really got this sense, what I want to share, it's real 50-50, right? I want to share both this sense that I got and then the other side of me, and it actually ties into what we've been talking about so far to an extent. So I'm waiting for the plane and I was listening to an audio book or something, and I suddenly got, if I never did one more thing for one person in my whole life, I've done enough. Like this real revelation around the work I've already done. Because you and I talk here and we very rarely reference my work actually. But, you know, being a coach and trainer and speaker for all these years, you know, 20-something years now, you know, I have tried to make a difference to it.
You've made a difference in my life.
Thank you. And I've got it.
done.
I got it, right? So I got it like that. I was like that. I was like, bloody hell, if I never did anything else. And so I felt this real sense of ease and relief and, I wonder what I want to do now. And same with what I got at the retreat. If I'm not doing things to look okay or be worthwhile, what would I do? And so then when I have moments like that, I have this real freedom. I'm like, I'm going to experiment with my creativity. I'm going to experiment with writing. I'm going to do as much of what we're doing as I want to do. Wonderful. And then this other part comes in that's like, excuse me, I think we're meant to be achieving something here. And, you know, you're meant to be tight and constrict and running around in tight circles trying to look good.
Yeah.
And where I sit right now is pretty much in the middle of the two because I've got the hormones to run that voice. Come on. And then I've got enough of the awareness now, having been a few weeks in, probably months in now since the retreat, where I can go, oh, hang on, I don't think that part's true. But it's very 50-50.
Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah. And so it depends. Sometimes I go, oh, I haven't done anything yet. My life's worth nothing.
Yes.
That's one mode. And the other mode is I've done so much. I said to Andy the other day, I think I'm going to start calling myself semi-retired. Yeah.
Amen. Testify.
I thought he'd protest, but he was right on board.
Yeah.
Because when I say I'm semi-retired, then anything I do doesn't have that feeling of pressure, must.
Yeah.
Right? It has, well, if I'm semi-retired, if I've created a business with him, with Andy that works, that gets us enough money, still takes a level of commitment from me and energy, but at a better and better level over time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting. The journey's not over because it's my biggest challenge, this particular topic, but it's I wish it was over. I wish I could say I totally got it. No, but I feel like I will.
You've cracked the door. You've cracked the door.
Yeah.
You know there's something good there.
Yeah, something
and now
there.
You're onto it.
And now it's like, all right.
Exciting.
It is exciting.
2025 is going to be a great year for that, I think. I feel it.
It's an interesting year.
Yeah.
I think there's some good stuff happening and bad. Like I said with Kath, it's all good, light and dark, right?
Yeah.
Scary and great.
Yeah.
Love and hate.
Yeah.
What's happening? Oh, it's all good.
Yeah.
So it's such a mixed thing, and I feel like those extremes are getting stronger.
Yeah. It's really forcing our evolution, isn't it?
Wow. And are we evolving? You know, like I suppose some hope, some of us hope we are.
Yeah.
And others are pretty sure they are.
Yeah.
It's whether they are or not, I don't know. So David White wrote this extremely long essay on anxiety that I read this morning, and I'm obviously not at the point of clarity. That'll be something I can read later where I can see what he was trying to say. I must be too in it to get it. Yeah. It was like, I can't even, one, it's too long to read here, but two, I was like, can't quite get that, you know? Can't quite get that yet. I think I must be in amongst that. But on the, again, 50-50, on the good side, I read David White last time. We had 50-50 and said about that breaking of bad habits, you know, like, do you feel like if you do something good, you'll die?
Yes.
And that had me start walking in the morning.
Yeah.
And then I was telling you before we got on air, you, me and Grayson and Dan and Sam actually, we're talking about going to the gym. And I've got a new personal trainer, Tab, her name is, she's fabulous. And I went to the gym this week with her and she started me on which weights we're going to use. And because I wanted to do dancing, but my knees are stuffed, so we have to build up the muscles so they can handle things, you know.
Yes.
Anyway, I was saying to you guys, I left the gym and I felt happy. It was very strange because I felt anxious in there. And it was so funny. She said, let's go to the Naranda one because it's lots of old people and you won't feel like that, you know, it's big Gym Bunny gym. Oh, every man in there was 80 and the only two women in there, one was a 20-year-old total hottie with like a peach of a bum, like in those tracksuit pants with they do the
what is
ruching
that?
in the crack.
Yes.
Totally worked on her, man. She was gorgeous. And I was like, oh, kill me now. And there's mirrors everywhere. And then this other woman who was like a bodybuilder who's probably about 35. And I said to Tab, come on, you said this is all old people. All the blokes are old, so there's no eye candy. And then there's women who are making me very, very aware of what I'm looking like in this mirror. But I did also feel proud. And then, when I left, I felt happy.
Yeah.
I got up this morning, felt anxious and broke my cycle and went for a walk.
Yeah.
So there's movement at the station, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's a strange time. It's
Isn't
an
it?
unknown time. And I totally get, the more unknown it gets, the more I get why people like their routines.
Yeah.
And go, no, hello,
So
I
easy.
am Tamara. I am this job.
Yeah.
I do this. This is my life. This is why I do it. I'm not analysing anything. I'm just going to do that thing. I'm going to stay safe. Because now I feel like, you know, when they do like a film where the hose is coming off the spaceship and the astronaut's going like that, right? And I'm hoping that the air's going to keep coming because it feels like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing. I've got a couple of big plans that I don't know how they're going to turn out, and I'm not sharing them here yet.
Yeah.
But that's going to be fascinating. But, it's really like I've got time. Life is good. When I'm hormonally well, it's really good.
Yeah.
I actually realised the other day, I was like, how would I ever question my success? My life is fucking awesome.
Yes. It's amazing.
It is amazing.
We have amazing. We're so lucky.
So lucky.
So lucky. Living our best lives.
Honestly, so lucky. Isn't it interesting how one's mind, like Dale Carnegie says, the mind can make a heaven of hell and a hell of heaven.
Yeah.
So yeah, dealing with that sort of not final hurdle. The next one will come, but biggie. It's a biggie that we're dealing with at the moment.
Yeah.
So around this ease and not ease, you know, I'm okay, I'm not okay, I'm doing okay, I'm not doing okay. Yeah, fascinating, man. I'm excited though. I love the idea of greater and greater ease around that.
Me too.
You know?
Me too.
Yeah. Cool. Let's have a look at our notes.
What else is on your list, Tam?
I don't know.
Have you hit all your beats?
I feel like we're almost there. One final thing, just so I
yes.
can say it in case people find it useful. Betty, my friend Betty, put me onto a lady on YouTube, VRC, the Venerable Someone. She's a Buddhist nun, and you find her by looking up VRC, Buddhist. She said the most obvious thing. I was listening to her when Betty recommended I listen to her and watch her. And she said, you know, when we train to be a chef or a carpenter or anything else, it's really obvious. We train and we know we're training and we're taking on all this new information and we practice, and that's how we get better at it.
Yeah.
And she goes, you know, with our minds, we must do the same practice. But in our society, we don't have it that the mind is something you can train or the mind. And like if we think about what's the fundamental at the bottom of all the stuff we've talked about here, certainly on Friday 50/50, it's around mind wrangling, right?
Yeah.
How do I appreciate what I've got? How do I do what I want to do? How do I quieten or love the demons?
Yes.
But when she said it was so freaking obvious. It was like when I did mindfulness-based stress reduction and one of the participants said, you know, doing the practice really helps. And the rest of us went, yes, that's what we should do. How does that work? How do you miss the such most obvious, but it's like it's too basic,
obvious,
right?
Yeah.
Feel your feet. What?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. It reminds me of the Natural Success course when he does that thing, you know, you learn, you apply, and he goes, most of us never get to the apply stage. We just keep learning. And I was like, oh, that's me. I learned something. That was interesting. Put it down, the next thing.
Yeah,
and then I'm like, oh, the applying bit where you actually sit and practice what you've learned or apply it in your daily life.
I know.
That's the bit that's actually where the magic is.
I know, isn't it incredible?
But you're like, oh, no, I've got to learn something new now.
Yeah, I've got to learn something new.
Something else.
I know. It's very interesting, and how basic it is, but we miss that step.
We miss that step a lot.
What else am I going to do? Hang on, you haven't done the last thing.
I've moved on,
man. What else is there, you know?
Last year was my year of applying.
Yes.
And this year is my year, like, applying and experimenting. And then this year is my year of, like, let's go.
Awesome.
Let's go.
How exciting.
Make the magic happen.
Oh, cool. I'm going with you. That sounds like the right path. Thank you, dear. Shall we wrap it up?
Thank you.
Thanks,
you.
Not for the kombucha.